Right.
Hey, this is episode 4 of Over My Head podcast. Today we're talking about Locomotion and my time lapse dolly. I'm Aaron Ruby, and
I'm
this
Will.
is.
That's me.
There he is.
We started right when a helicopter or something's flying over my apartment, so let's all enjoy that for a second.
It's just landing on the roof as we
Yeah.
speak.
I live very convenient to the airport, so that's kind of nice.
Oh, I didn't even realize you had like a major airport problem.
Uh, Only airport noises and train noises really here, so
Okay.
works out.
I've got a friend whose beautiful backyard pool is like a wonderful paradise until like every 5 minutes a plane takes off from the Burbank airport and you're like, we're gonna die. Like this is the end right now.
Yeah, that
They're
sounds
just
about right.
like right over the house. There he is. They probably got a deal though, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably true. I get a surcharge on my rent.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's not true.
Yeah. You have helicopters and I have ambulances up and down the street.
Yeah, you're right. The helicopters aren't so bad.
Yeah, they're not. Anyway, so Will sent me this video today. We'll put a link to it in the notes, but sent me a link for a website. What was it called?
Syrup. Uh,
Syrup.co.nz.
Obviously, yeah, spelled wrong in the manner of tech startups.
Yeah. So like, they're a company that makes time-lapse dolly stuff, motion control-y kind of stuff. They have a cool product called. Where is it? Where is it? The Genie. That's it. So their time lapse dolly brain and motor systems called the Genie. Um, they just had some really cool ideas that we wanted to talk about a little bit. Um,
Yeah, do you
and
want to show it
yeah, we can flip to that quickly.
just to give some
Quickly, I
context?
mean dead airly. So is it easier
Humana,
to
humana, humana,
go?
humana.
We're going to here. We're sharing the thing. There it is. See
Just
it?
gonna savor this black screen for a second, and there it is.
Isn't there? Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so we'll show a little bit of the video, and again we'll link to it because it is super cool.
So what are we seeing here, Aaron?
Looking at right here is what we want to see. So you've got the camera mounted onto this thing. It's got a motor in the bottom that connects to basically anything with wheels is kind of the gist of it. But I've got a screenshot here of the important part. So like right here is kind of what um, we're looking at their spool drive. So
Right, I see.
they have a rope just like on our time lapse dolly, but instead of having the spool at one end of the track and reeling that cord in, pulling the dolly along with it, the spool is mounted on the dolly itself, and it has some kind of like screw drive where one end of the rope is at either end of the track, obviously, and then this spinning rotation moves everything down the track. So
Is
they
it? I
have,
mean, it wouldn't need to be a screwdriver, right? I mean, you could just have like the rope would just spin around it if it was just a pulley with enough internal friction.
I feel like I'm kind of convinced that it's some sort of like worm drive, screw drive
Hmm.
system.
I
Here's
thought it was just wrapped around that motor hub.
It's possible. We can talk about like maybe making that happen on mine a little later, but I want to show you this part in particular because this blew me away. So like they show you at first that they're on track, but then they set this thing onto a skateboard and they just tie the rope at either end, and the thing can move.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's amazing that you can set up a shot if you have like a flat piece of ground. You can set up almost any length shot that way.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the thing I thought was funny is they're doing these three line setups like over that river. Like it's just like the pull line and then two stabilizing lines. That is
Yeah,
horrifying.
it's it's kind of scary for your gear, but the shot that they're able to pull off is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is
It's
awesome.
this. And then this setup is also, it's the same thing obviously, but used over like an event that's happening.
Right.
It gives you a little bit better view of like what their setup is. Obviously, this is really simple. Like they've got some little piece of wood snapped together. They mounted the motor in the center here.
Yeah, it
and
looks
then
like there's some
that's just
casters on the line there.
right. And then I was glad to see this because I was like, was that safetied? And they did put like a little
Oh
zip,
yeah, the zap
a
strap
zip,
there.
yeah, a zip strap kind of thing on there in case it jumps the line. It's not going to fall on the crowd that gathers below it.
Right.
Let me show you that part. So like during this crazy event, you don't want your dolly falling out of the sky onto
Right.
people.
Yeah.
Not like it weighs crazy amounts, but pretty heavy anyway. So
Heavy enough you wouldn't want it falling on your head from 15 feet.
right,
How's that?
exactly. And we're always kind of looking at this stuff. There's tons of little companies out there that make time-lapse equipment that does like the little pan or like what is able to pull a dolly down a track,
Mm-hmm.
or like a new kind of track that's like a slider that extends on itself.
Yeah. That's what's cool about this particular dolly, right, is that it'll run over an indefinite length. Like rope is a relatively cheap commodity.
Yeah, yeah, and they're selling spools of it in like 100-meter lengths. Like
Right.
you could get any length of rope and run it down the street.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really cool.
It's a really cool idea.
Obviously, still expensive, like all these things.
Still expensive, and the funny thing is that each one of these products that comes out, almost every single one of them says affordable or like budget conscious or that
Right.
kind of thing, and then it's like $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, and in fairness, in the world of camera equipment, $1,000 is like, yeah, sorry, man, you're just gonna
Yeah,
price
yeah,
to
but
pay.
the opposite of that is that in the world of my bank account,
Right.
it does mean something. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm making my own thing. In the first place, that was 2.5 years ago that I started playing with it. So I've spent maybe just as much money
In installments, though,
in
it's fine.
installments.
Yeah.
I'm like on a payment program to have
Right.
a working time-lapse dolly.
Yeah, and it's like a work study thing too.
Yes, that is true. I am learning a lot through the
Yeah.
process.
But
Um,
I do think that your idea is more, or our drive is more similar to this idea than I think you're giving it credit for.
It's extremely similar to it. That's what it kind of made me feel better about our drive because it's so similar to it. I've been kind of down on the whole like rope pulley
Right.
dolly thing for a long time because I feel like it's not state of the art. But like
Right.
the things that they're able to do with it, like the flexibility of length being the major um,
Right.
improvement, is awesome. And we could do that with our current parts. I don't
Yeah.
see any reason we couldn't.
Yeah. The big change, of course, is the drive is on the dolly. But that's something we were thinking about having to do anyway. So do you want to talk about some of these other ideas for attaching that you were considering, and drive, I should say?
Yeah, so like when I first put together the drive, I can show you this. This is like, we're using these small stepper motors, which is the same thing that's on the dolly now over here.
Yeah, that one's a little bit larger on the dolly, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger and it has a little bit more power to it.
Right.
But it's basically the same setup in that there's a stepper motor and then there's a spool. And the spool spins and pulls the dolly along the track. What I'm trying to do with this one, or what I try to do with this one, is create like some mechanical advantage. We had a lot of issues with not enough torque, like this motor
Right.
being tiny, and then the weight that we were trying to pull, it was just too much for it.
Right,
So,
and we had it configured wrong, as I recall. We were doing smaller steps than was the ideal to get the full torque, right?
right, you're talking about micro stepping.
Yeah.
So these motors can be set, or the motor drivers rather, can be set to create steps between the steps. So instead of doing like a full click into place, which is stronger and gives you more torque. It can
Right.
give you finer adjustment,
Right.
which is really awesome, but the trade-off is there's less power for pulling stuff there,
Right.
as I understand it. So what you're
Yeah.
seeing,
Caveat.
yeah, exactly. Show's called Over My Head for a reason.
Yep.
Anywho, moving on. So like what you're seeing here is that we've got a gear attached to the shaft of this motor,
Yep.
and a larger gear here, with the idea being that this motor spins fast, and then this motor spins more
That
slowly, but
spindle, rather. Yeah.
it has more torque, is the idea.
Right.
The problem is it's not it's not machined well.
Right, and it's also
by
built on a piece of PCB.
a very flexible piece of
Yeah.
perf board or
Right.
whatever you'd call this.
Mhm.
So it goes out of alignment pretty easily, so you can kind of
Right.
just flex
Particularly
it.
under load, yeah.
Yeah, you can flex it right off the gear there. I'm not sure if you can see that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's an air gap. So that didn't end up working. I think the concept is good, but the execution was poor.
Right.
And we still might end up going that direction. But that's basically the same driving as we're currently using, just with more mechanical advantage.
Right.
The next idea would be, instead of using a rope, which we found that there's there's obviously flex, and there's a little bit of like stretchiness to rope.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the rope we're using too. Like there are pre-stretch, like expensive rope, right?
Yeah, that's true. So we're using like
Looks like a nylon rope.
it's a paracord.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing that you would, I don't know, what is that really what goes up to parachutes?
I don't
It's
take our advice on what to use with your parachute.
It's something like that. Don't go skydiving.
Yeah.
We're
sure it's pretty
we're
constrained.
very aware of how like litigious of a society we live in, Will.
Well, we're also well aware of how not trustworthy our statements of fact are.
Sure.
I think that's the other thing.
That's true. So I think the precautions we're taking with our caveats and disclaimers constantly throughout this one is that this might be the first broadcast that aliens receive from the planet Earth. And they might go skydiving based on what they've just heard with a substandard paracord.
Are you open broadcasting this into space somehow?
Yeah, probably. There's like leakage. The internet leaks into space.
We can just move. We can just
Yeah,
move.
we're gonna move on.
That's fine. Yeah.
All right, so here's this next idea. So a different way to go about this whole thing is to use like a belt that has little teeth in it.
Yeah, there you go. That's resolving. Pull back a little bit, maybe.
Back up a little bit.
Hold
This
it.
is like
hold
show
it.
and
Oh,
tell.
there it is. Yeah, there it
This is
is.
like show and tell every week.
Yeah.
So I've got this. It's about 9 feet long, and you can attach one end of this to the end of the track, the other end to the other end, and then this would also be a dolly-based motor.
Yep. Yeah. This was what I was referring to. If we need to move the motor anyway.
Right. So let me show you a screenshot of kind of what that setup would look like. I'm going to share my screen again here. Prodigy. That thing. Example. Stepper motor. This thing. No. This one. Okay. So
There it is. Never mind those other things you saw.
what you're seeing is all of these things are useful for this conversation, so it's fine if you saw them. So this is the dolly, obviously that's on a track, and then a open-ended geared belt, toothed belt, all along
So
it.
like you just showed us, that 9-foot stretch of belt.
Yeah, so and what they're doing is they've got this shaft here would be driven by the stepper motor with a gear mounted on it, and that
Right.
would interlock with the teeth on the belt. And then these things are pulleys, basically, just providing tension for this.
Yeah, to
this
keep the
gear.
teeth on the stepper motor.
Right, because it would just it basically just fall off if
Yeah,
those
balance,
weren't there.
yeah.
So that's another idea. It's really I want to do this. You see a lot of kind of more professional setups do this.
Yeah.
Because it's really precise.
And it seems like it would have a good holding strength too. Like if we were, even if we were at an incline, the motor would not slip at all.
which is definitely something that I want to be able to do instead of just doing a flat move over time. It'd be so amazing to do like a big vertical move over time too, like up and
Right.
over a rock or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's a good way to go, I think. The other ideas are, we talked about mechanical advantage before. There's another way to do that besides a terrible gear system that I put together.
Okay.
Let me go back to this. There's another thing called a planetary. What is it called?
The file name of that was Sun and Planets.
Yeah, it's called a planetary gearbox. So, like, let me go back to that animation. You seen that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so inside of this, there's this gear would be driven by the stepper motor like usual, and then you get this mechanical advantage on this outer ring. So these are all the same size, they're spinning at the same speed, but then against this outer ring, you get that mechanical advantage. And that's like it's really solid. Like it's gonna get you a lot of torque, and it's also not going to break. But these are crazy expensive. Like,
Right. I can see that though. It seems like they would need to be machined to a
and
pretty
they're
exacting standard.
and you have to like buy a lot of them. I'm seeing them for around $1,000, which I think is nuts.
Yeah, it seems like maybe we would just buy a stepper motor controller at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's another cool idea. I would love to do that plus a bell-driven system plus a like every upgrade ever I would want to do for this dolly to make it
Right.
as cool as possible. But
Yeah, so if any viewers have access to, a 3D printer or a laser CNC,
yeah, like
like
a rapid prototyping
we can
factory in China.
absolutely talk specifications on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they have one sitting idle, like I don't want to take time from some other project.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah.
Here, let me just show you some of the other pieces that I've kind of like collected over the time that I've done this. So this is kind of like this is it's the same gear basically that's mounted on the other system, this little system. This is a gear from maybe like a remote control high performance car, called a Traxxas,
Okay.
and it's made for a pretty specific piece in there. And what I've done, because it wouldn't like fit snugly onto the bolts that I was using, I mounted a dime onto it with
Oh,
hot glue
fair enough.
and then drilled a hole in it. So I'm like trying to bodge together these parts from just absurd places.
So yeah, if anyone has access to a laser CNC or 3D printing capability, again, I mean,
it would be helpful.
yeah, there's room for that sort of thing in our process.
Sure. Here, I can show you a little bit. This is that tooth belt that we're talking about, and then this is like a gear that you can mount onto one of these stepper motors.
Right.
The shaft there.
So that looks like it's actually made for that, right?
Well, okay, again, there's hot glue involved in this.
Okay.
This is a
Over My Head podcast brought to you by Hot Glue.
Yeah, we need to take a station break to thank our sponsor, Hot Glue Society of America.
Right.
Yeah, so this piece is made to mount on the shaft of the stepper motors I have.
Yeah.
And then this didn't fit on that is why I added that piece.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
we're getting by with what we've got.
Yeah, no, we're making it work.
But just to illustrate that idea again, like you would mount the belt there, you'd put tension on the belt so it was like down this way so it would never fell off of there, and then it would pull itself along.
Right.
Which would be kind of sweet. We would love to do that. Yeah, so let me see if I've got any more things I want to cover. I think that's it. That might be it. It might be our fastest podcast ever.
How do you feel about that?
I feel great. I think you're really moved.
All right, well, that's good. I want to talk a little bit about the way I think this rope works, and I kind of want, for visual aid's sake, to actually grab a rope. So I'll be just briefly. It's right there.
All right, I've got some rope. All right. While Will's grabbing rope, I can talk about our sponsor, Toothed Belts. Oh, there he's back. Good.
Yeah, no, it was just that easy. It was really just right over there. It's unfortunately tied to something, so if I'm just going to continue talking while I very quickly undo these knots.
Oh, I can continue our commercial for Toothed Belts that I was doing.
Oh, all right.
They're great for maybe one thing. That was it. That was all the copy they gave us. So
That's,
it's red.
I thought maybe you would do something with the fact they had teeth, like versus normal belts. But I mean, if that's the copy they gave you, that's the copy they gave you. Like
they're specific and they're completely specific, so we can't make any sort of can't stray from that at all.
My friend Annalise just tweeted, "Thank you, Hot Glue Society of America." So
thank goodness.
Yeah, there's some, happy to build that brand. We're really happy to have them as a sponsor of the Over My Head podcast.
That's funny.
So I'm thinking, Aaron, you just do something, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking, so I have my coffee thermos here, and you tie just a slip knot around that.
Okay.
And if this had enough friction, I don't know if my coffee thermos actually does, but as it rotates, I think it would just pull through this knot.
Tilt down on that, maybe?
I'm just going to do it on my finger. But if I'm, rotating
You think it would?
Yeah.
It wouldn't bind up and then you'd end up stopping?
It might. I mean, you might need to... There might be some sort of specialty knot or something you would have to do. Or maybe you just do a loop around. But I suspect there's...
I think that you could do that. I think if you just looped maybe 4 times...
Right, yeah.
And you had it open... an open end...
Yeah, and just
side, it'd be fine. It wouldn't catch on itself, really.
Right. And then you would just tie off the excess.
Right.
Yeah, I think that might be worth a shot. Is there a way to affix to the dolly with the motor as it stands right now, or do we have to figure something out for that?
Yeah, so here, let me pull a dolly. So the dolly has these 3/4 20 holes on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using one of them for a camera mount.
Right.
But the other ones are open, so if we wanted to use one of them for the shaft.
Can you bring that up?
Yeah, sorry. So this is the dolly. It's tiny. It's meant to be lightweight, so you can pack it in and hike wherever.
Right.
So these holes there, you can kind of see, would fit the shaft of maybe the smaller stepper motors I have.
Right.
And I'm thinking that it's thinner in the center here. You could probably get enough clearance to get the bolts that you would need to fix the stepper motor.
Right.
There. You put a plate on one side.
Right. Yeah, so then there's the problem of where the battery lives, maybe. But
no, I don't think that's a problem. I would just create, I already have power extension
all right.
cables, so the battery could be far away.
There you go. Next state even.
Yeah.
All right.
At a high enough voltage, that would work.
So what do you think we're going to try any of these things before the off-mentioned trip with Greg?
Before the trip with Greg, I don't think so. I think we have a pretty working dolly now. We could.
Right.
I could think about mounting that motor, because we're not changing anything significantly other than that.
Mm-hmm.
If I had the pieces to mount the motor to this dolly, then we could probably give it a shot.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty slick.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And we could make our own cable flying camera system.
Right, yeah, suspend over crowds.
Over a gorge.
Right.
Yeah, there's got to be liability involved in doing that.
No, they probably had insurance.
I'm sure. Everyone's got liability these days.
Right, yeah. And they weren't telling people they weren't experts.
That's true. They were probably presuming to be experts.
Right.
Cool. Well, other than just the loop thing, is there a way that, would you get some sort of wormed gear thing that could accept a rope on the top and then twist around and then head out the
Yeah,
other way.
yeah, or even you could maybe do that linearly, like the wormed gear went in this direction and you just coiled through. But
Mm, oh, if we're going to talk about that, I've got to pull up a sweet picture
all right,
of wormed vehicles. There's this one called like the Mud Killer or something.
all right.
Worm Drive. It's like Russian. They're made to go over like snow and stuff.
Mud, probably. Suspect there's mud involved.
Yeah, there's mud on that one. There's like a big tractor that's got mud on it. I can't find this again. I'm gonna find it. It's so worth looking at.
I'm excited. I mean, I can barely contain myself.
I looked at it today while I was like setting up my screenshots and stuff, and I was like, "This is cool, but we're never gonna fit it in. It's just not gonna fit in this awesome podcast that we're creating." This thing. Okay, so I found it.
Find us on Google Plus.
All right, going to Google Hangouts, switching to screen sharing mode, and we are doing it. We're waiting for it.
And there it is.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
That's like a weird Ford tractor kind of thing.
This is much, much more retro than I thought it was going to be.
It's crazy. So here's another one. A screw-propelled weasel prototype for like going over all-terrain kind of stuff.
Is that a valid alternate spelling of weasel?
The Weasley. Yeah, maybe it's
French. Yeah.
This thing just going on what looks like a frozen lake in Russia.
I notice all
Russian
of these pictures are from a long time ago, Aaron. Do you think that this is an idea that's time has passed, or
this one's out there, the Mudmaster.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
Look how muddy that field is.
Yeah. What? Can you go back up to the Mudmaster?
Yeah, of course. You want to spend more time on the Mudmaster?
Yeah. What is it doing there? Like, I can understand. I mean, you have a vehicle that can traverse crazy amounts of mud, but is it going somewhere? Is there some purpose for which it's in this field of mud?
I think it's probably moving forward through the field.
All right.
I couldn't tell you other than that.
Fair enough.
Or what muddy apocalyptic future it's from.
The 1970s, it looks like.
Not actually. It's like that's a pretty rich vein of like apocalypse that you could mine for a long time.
Yeah.
The mud apocalypse. This one's the best though. You can kind of see most clearly what's going on there, and I found other boats with this same screw drive.
Right. So just to pull back, yeah, I mean you feed the rope along this rivery utility craft.
Yeah.
And then out either end, and then yeah, as long as it had enough grip so the rope wouldn't pull through, I think you could probably standing vertically or perpendicular to the axis of travel on the dolly, you'd have better grip. But that's basically what we're talking about doing, just spinning it around the spool a couple of times.
Without like a guide. I think the guide would add a lot of maybe reliability to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'd have to try it.
Cool. So that's an interesting idea. I would like to try it. We'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps us up.
So, do we have a plan for what we're going to be talking about next time?
I don't think so. Not yet. We can talk, if we want to jump back to another project of yours, we can do that, or we can continue trying to make the time-lapse dolly actually do something.
Well, we can talk about a sort of related area I've been playing with, maybe. I have a time-lapse rig for a tripod that just spins the camera.
Great.
That I've been reverse engineering the programming. It gets programmed with this web app, and I don't like the fact that I need to program it with this web app. So I've been reverse engineering the way they program it. So we can talk about that maybe.
Interesting. That sounds crazy. Yeah, I want to put that thing onto the time-lapse dolly and see
that's absolutely the hope, yeah.
Cool. All right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
See ya.